Hello and welcome to my advanced Narve guide. In this guide we're going to be going over all of the things that Narve can do, especially when comboing with other units. So what I'm going to try to do here is get a few units on the board that combo with Narve. So let's just grab Maxwell. Alright, here we go. Alright, we got Maxwell, got some mages. Alright, so first, before we start the match, let's go over items for Narve. So Narve is basically a damage mage that can also heal. So he's like 80% damage, 20% healing, I would say. He doesn't really have shutdown. You could count spark, but 30% chance to paralyze is quite low, but it's still something. But you're not going to be relying on him for shutdown. If he uses spark and it shuts down, it's a bonus, but not something you should plan around, because it's just not, like 30% aren't consistent enough to form strategies around. But he's a damage unit that can heal. He can contribute to healing. He has 5 options for 2 TP, which is actually pretty good. And he's generally a decent unit. He's not like a bad unit at all. I know some people think I like dislike Narve. I don't think he's a good unit, but I'm comparing him to like other things when I'm running him. So like he's being compared to the other big mages, so like Frederica and Corentin. He's still like a solid A tier, I would say. He's like a decent unit for a few reasons. We're going to go over those. But for items, I would say speed items are best on him. Just increasing the amount of turns he has, assuming he's going to be catching battery. You can also run magic attack increase. That's acceptable. But I would argue speed is usually best because he wants to get in as many like he basically just going to be spamming whirlwind the entire game. That's basically what you want to do in New Game Plus. You just spam whirlwind, you put debuff on things, you flip the direction enemies face, and then you deal like chip damage essentially. You want to run the damage boost on wind, and then for the fire or ice, you can run whichever depending on which enemy weaknesses you're encountering. Both are fine. Ice can be better if you want to shut enemies down by reducing movement and accuracy. Fire can be better if you want to set up fire traps. He can always do this anyways, but if you want to also hit them while they're in the trap for extra damage, it's really an issue of that. Other items that can be good on him, movement bangle can be okay on him, res earring if he's going to be like in the front lines the entire time. He does have slightly higher physical defense. He has like 33 in this case over the other mages. So like Corentin's 24, Frederica 25. So he has better physical defense in both of these units, but it's still worse than most frontliners. So he generally wants things to be body blocking. Alright, so we've gone over items, so let's just start the match. To start going over the main points, I have 8 for him. I try to come up with 10, but his kit's just so straightforward, and this isn't a bad thing. Like, sometimes simplicity is better than complication because it just works. So we just have 8 bullet points to go over. Alright, so Narve can reduce enemy magic defense. So if we look at his abilities, he has pierce defenses, so decreases enemy's magic defense for 3 turns when you deal damage to them. So this lowers it by 5, which is roughly a 4 to 6% increase in damage. So he can put debuff on enemies and then essentially scale his own damage and scale other allies' damage. So we have a few options here. With Benedict, we can twofold turn Narve, so we'll actually do that just to show him like going to town. He's going to need to catch battery, but luckily we can do that because we have Medina, so we'll just have Medina just double items him. So if you're going to be running Narve, he's going to want a battery, which, you know, he has no way of regenerating extra TP. And we'll go into all the ups and downs of Narve as well as how to mitigate these problems. So, all right, we'll just have Roland just kind of roll up here. Okay, so Narve can reduce enemy magic defense, so we've gone over that. All right, so wind magic can indirectly also increase physical damage. So it increases magic damage by just straight up increasing it. So if we want to be as efficient and safe as possible, we'd put him here. And you can see here the range on this is pretty good. The AoE is pretty decent on this. So we'll deal some damage. 132 flips them, which is good. And then we can do it again, which will increase the damage from them being debuffed. Alright, so now that their backs are flipped, this is how you increase the physical damage. Now obviously this guy's going to stab us all. But the way you increase the physical damage, assuming that you're like just out of reach, you could have like Roland, so for example we'll just have like Roland stab that enemy and kill him. And then also Frederica is going to deal scale damage to this. So if I go to Scorch, it almost kills him, but obviously I can kill him with Blazing Chains. So she'll get a little bit of scale damage. So when Narve is just spamming wind on enemies, like big groups of enemies, that increases Glacial Moon damage by a little bit. It increases Sunfall, Scorches from Frederica. You can kind of see here Roland can safely back crit this from pretty far away now. The accuracy is 100%. So this also increases, like, you know, Roland's accuracy. Some people say he has bad accuracy, but it's usually in like the 80s from the front. So we can just safely do this, get a guaranteed crit. So Narve has boosted the damage of mages and physical, in this case, just by 1 unit. But you can see there the downside of wind. I wanted to show that because all you have to do, or I'm sorry. Okay, so I wanted to show the downside of that because if an enemy moves in between things being flipped, then you don't get the upside, right? Like if an enemy moves and repositions, you can't hit them in the back anymore. That's like the pretty much the only downside of wind is like when you flip a dude and then they unflip by taking a turn. So you kind of want to sequence things so that Narve can flip things and then your dudes can hit them right after. And that isn't always the case. Sometimes it is, and when it is, great, but it's not always the case. But it can, on average, in general, even if you're not planning for it, increase your unit's physical damage as well as increasing magic damage. And it'll be definitely, like, the physical damage will be more substantial because a back crit is better than like a few percent of damage, so just something to consider. Okay, so Narve by himself tends to deal medium damage and is generally outdamaged by Frederica and Corentin, and also, hilariously, he's outdamaged by Piccoletta with double speed items spamming stones. So that's like a thing that I discovered, which is kind of funny. Now this doesn't mean he's bad though, because obviously the wind AoE he has access to is quite huge. I'm just gonna Raging Beast him for fun. So he can still, so theoretically he could outdamage Piccoletta. It could be pretty competitive between the two, assuming he hits a lot of enemies with wind, which is possible. You can ball enemies up. And balling enemies up is effective, like around an Eridor. You can have Eridor ball enemies up, and that's quite good. So he can definitely go to town and get high damage numbers off when using wind optimally. The only downside of wind is it's not the best for pushing a position, like especially if the enemy has high ground. It's usually more defensive, but if you're on flat ground, you can kind of slow push with it because you want to get the enemies to ball up. So if we look at the height, you can see here it only hits ±4. So it eventually will stop hitting things, especially if they're too high up. That's the only downside of wind. Otherwise, it's insanely good, to be honest. Well, not insanely good. Glacial Moon's so much better, but it's pretty good. It's like a solid like AA tier ability. But you can see like Frederica can just kind of casually nuke everything. And same thing with like Corentin. Like these two I would say these two mages are a little bit better than Narve. But the wind is decent. And especially if you're running a physical heavy team and you just want to run like Julio, like if you don't want to run Medina, that's something you could do. Let's see, opportune, pushback, nice. Just drop him. Alright, so we can kill this dude with a thing. If I want... One thing I could do, just throw a stone. Usually it's better to just throw a stone to last hit something. I guess we'll just kill Thunderstone. Just to save TP. So that's another thing you can do with him that's useful. Okay. So Narve has access to every element. Depending on enemy weakness, if they have weaknesses, you should switch elemental damage boosts around to target weaknesses. So Narve has 2 aura abilities. You can see here right now I have wind and fire damage up. It's either wind or lightning or fire or ice. So if enemies have a lot of weakness in one thing, you can select that thing and then spam that spell more. So that's one upside of Narve versus other mages. This is more of a fresh save thing because on New Game Plus everyone has elemental stones, so that's not even a thing anymore. Because if there's an enemy with like a resistance to fire and you're playing as Frederica, you can just have her throw a large ranged ice stone to deal huge damage and target their weakness. So, but this is definitely useful on a fresh save, targeting weakness and then switching his aura abilities around. Alright, so wind is arguably Narve's best element due to the AoE radius. It's also one of the it's basically the cheapest large AoE in the game. It's 2 TP and it hits in a huge, pretty huge AoE for 2 TP. This is nice, but the only problem with it is that it's from Narve, so the furthest he can hit is like 4 tiles away, which is good. It's still good, but when comparing this to like Sunfall, which has a range of 0 to 6, and then hits 2 more tiles out, and Glacial Moon has the exact same range. Those are just better for hitting far out. And then, of course, like Decimal exists. So, like, if you want to hit far out, that's the thing. So Narve is kind of a more bruiser-ish mage. That's kind of like a midliner that can take a little bit more damage than some of these other mages, but like in physical at least. I think his magic defense might be lower. Or looks like it's competitive. It's slightly lower, but it's pretty similar. So he's pretty good, like, overall durability for what he is. Yeah, having almost 500 health baseline is pretty good. So he's kind of meant to be closer, like with like an Eridor, spamming things that surround Eridor with like wind, and then working with like Maxwell and Roland. I would say he combos better with physical units than with mages. Like the debuff helps your mages deal more damage, but like back crits, I think they're like what 30% or 35% more damage versus 4 to 6% from reducing their magic defense. It's not even comparable, in my opinion. Let's bulwark Roland arbitrarily. Okay. So, Mystic Beam. Let's talk about this. We'll actually use it, too.
I'll do my utmost.
So, his special cool ability, Mystic Beam. He can heal while damaging. Whatever is in the line, he can heal, but that's an ally, or damage if it's an enemy. So, here's Mystic Beam. So, you can see here, we can heal... I think it has a range of 7, right, with extending? It should... It's not letting me, like, just go down. It's, like, selecting random things. Alright. Come on. Okay. It says 1 to 6. Let me double-check that, though. It should be 7. Yeah, it's 7 with it extending your range. So this is actually a pretty good ability for poking things at range, especially if enemies are lined up, because it hits them for good damage and also heals things in the way. So it's just, like, a decent ability. Now, it costs 4 TP. But it can be situationally better than Wind because it effectively gives him 7 range. Obviously, it can't hit things that are on high ground because it's like a beam. I mean, that doesn't even make sense, though, honestly. Like, beams could just be aimed up, but in the case of this game, it's like a lane thing, so its height restrictions are pretty annoying. Yeah, plus or 4 minus height. Or plus or minus 4 height, so that's not that good. It's still pretty good, though. So just keep that in mind. Like, you're not going to be able to use that on, like, a dude up here, but you could lane nuke these, for example. So we'd have, like, Maxwell high jump in. Narve could Mystic Beam those. He could also use Wind on them, probably, at this range. But it gives him a little bit more range, gives him some flexibility. He can heal while damaging, which is kind of nice. He's going to want a battery to spam this, otherwise he's not going to be spamming this. So that's Mystic Beam. Okay, so Narve can heal with Mystic Beam or Sanctuary, making him a healing mage as well as a damaging one. So, like, Frederica, she has some utility and some shutdown. She can reduce movement by 1 with Blazing Chains. Narve can reduce movement by 1 with Ice Tiles. She has Flame Shield, which is just, like, counterattack damage and also reduces fire damage. And then she has Fire Eater, which negates fire damage and turns it into healing. So she has some utility, and so does Corentin with his Wall of Ice, and he has Shutdown with Silence, Frosty Fetters. He has Icy Tomb for Big Spike, and he also has Shield of Ice for mitigation. So, like, a lot of these mages have more than just, like, damage, and in Narve's case, his big, like, selling point is that he also has healing, which can be useful, especially in a fresh save. This just gives him some more flexibility, and Sanctuary is a good spell. Being able to heal multiple things at range is always good. So this is definitely something that's like a point in his favor, I guess. If we were to, like, look at things to, like, discern him from other units or why you would run him over other units. All right, so the final point we have to talk about is TP issues. So the other mages, Frederica, KO TP plus, kill anything with, like, if anything dies from her AoEs, she gets an extra TP back. Corentin, if he's on Ice Tiles, he gets extra TP each turn. Narve has no TP management abilities, so he needs a battery if he wants to cast each turn. If you do not want to run a battery, like a Julio or a Medina, all you have to do is have him throw items or just whack with his staff, but obviously throwing items is usually better. He's damage boosted right now, so, like, it might look like his strength is good, but it's actually just boosted, so it's, like, probably closer to 35. So he would be better off just throwing elemental stones or using, like, a healing item or something for chip healing and just still being useful and relevant. So he doesn't need to catch a battery, But if you want to use him optimally, he probably wants a battery at some point. So I would just say that's something to consider when running Narve. Just Frosty Fighters this guy. But overall, he is a good unit. You can run him full time. And on New Game Plus, everything is viable. So, it's something... Oh, we missed. It's unfortunate. That is a rogue, though. Like, people, like, undervalue the fact that things have evasion. Because, so, like, any melee unit attacking that, or, like, an archer from the front, might miss. Because it's a rogue, so something to consider. Often when people complain about Roland missing, it's usually they're attacking rogues from the front, like I just did there. But also, if something is last hittable in New Game Plus, just throw a stone at it, right? That's I should take my own advice. Just kill the stone. Alright, here we go. So here's where Whirlwind could be useful. A bunch of dudes balled up to some degree. Alright, you can also use Bird of Prey on Narve to give him a mobility increase. I'd say he is good with Benedict. So now this effectively increases his range. But as you can see here, I'm not able to cast a spell because of the TP issues he has, which is unfortunate. But I can still be useful. We can always be useful. Just throw a stone for good damage. Put magic debuff on those. Something else can kill them next turn easily. So even when he has like a dead turn, he can still just throw a stone. And if you don't want to use stones, then run a battery, essentially. That's pretty much it for Narve. I don't really have anything else for him for like this type of advanced guide sort of situation. I would say overall, I should have two-word one stoned AoE there, but I would say overall he's a strong unit from wind spam. He's not like an A+ tier or an S tier. He's like an A tier, and I think this is what I put on my most recent tier list too. There's like a few people who say that I undervalue him, but it's like, no, I mean, I still consider at decimal like an A tier. I don't think he's like bad or anything. I just don't. I'm not a fan of him, and they're not like the best thing, but they are really good. That's kind of like where Narve is. Like the reason why spamming wind isn't as good as other things, for the most part, is because like even on this map, you can see how things are kind of spread apart. You have to get things balled up in order to take advantage of that AoE. So most of your encounters, the spells you're going to be spamming are going to be things like Scorch. And you can see here, like, Frederica's damage is insane. I have a magic and a speed on her, but her base magic attack is higher. But this Scorch damage, 319, versus Narve's of 260. Like, it's almost, was like 80-ish damage higher. Or not even. It's like 60 damage higher. But still, I don't know if it calculates in the clear weather damage. I don't know if it displays that, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't, and she hits much harder. But she, on average, deals like an extra 30% in relation to Narve. So that's kind of nuts. And we got Roland over here doing things. doing things he does. I think I actually just got him. Okay. He is Resurrecting probably, but we just let Frederica die pointlessly. But yeah, that's the end of the video. Narve is a good unit. Wind spam is good. The other things he can spam are like Icy Breath and Scorch. Sometimes you can have him spam Spark. Him using Spark is actually decent. It's like decent damage. It's slightly less damage than Azana, but it's comparable, and the paralyzed chance is much lower. So, yeah, 30 versus 60%. Azana is better at shutdown, but Narve is better at like AoE damage because of his wind radius. So definitely wind spam build, and then sometimes using Mystic Beam and healing as needed, I would say is his best use case. So that's it for this one. Let me know if there's anything I missed with Narve, if there's anything interesting you do with him. One of the best use cases, I would think, would be just comboing him with Mage Team and having him like catch Dragon Shield from Benedict so he can be somewhat safe. So the problem I think he has, you could run him with Flanagan, but he would be turtling. If you ran him with Flanagan, it would be Narve is at the front. So I guess we'll show this really quick. We'll show like a kind of Death Ball comp using Narve instead of Avlora. I think that would be interesting. Because this is the the Narve guide. We have to show everything we can think of and everything that's good and viable. So let's make like a quick Death Ball. So unit placement. So a Death Ball is using Flanagan. And it's using Flanagan, Medina, Corentin, and then the other 2 units can be Serenoa, can be whatever. So we'll just do these, I think. Yeah. And then turn off everyone else. We don't need Benedict in this case. We can get rid of Serenoa for fun. Alright, so this is kind of like the structure of a death ball. Alright, we'll just start. We'll let the enemies come to us for like 2 turns. In this case, Narve would just be spamming wind to put debuff and just damaging things. And then everyone else just damages it with spells, so. And then Flanagan maintains Rampart. Alright, so we just do double items, get everyone to full. Actually, what I would probably do is this. We want to get Corentin on ice right away. And we also want to put ice tiles down so if they start attacking us, it reduces their accuracy. Then we'll get just a ranged.
Here you go. Thank goodness.
Okay. Alright, and then Narve would actually have to wait, which is fine. Because this would essentially be a defensive death ball where you're just kind of chilling out, waiting for things to approach you.
Let me show you what I've learned.
Alright, Frederica's going to get the first damage spell off. So probably just Blazing Chains. She can. Alright. Scorch. Alright, Corentin, he can Glacial Moon right away, but it's can only hit one thing, so he might as well just use Icy Breath. So this is like a mage death ball. I didn't mean to expose Medina's back, that was actually a slight accident. Alright, we'll use Rampart. Give everyone 50% damage reduction. Narve's gonna get his big turn off. His big turn off. So what we can do here, because Medina can act, we could probably double wind. Or actually we can win from here. So this is pretty reasonable. This might be one of the better use cases. So you can see here, he just uses wind. Medina can fast acting him.
Thank you. I hope you're watching, Grandpa.
Wind again, killing one of them. So any amount of enemies that approach, like you just keep spamming them down with magic. And then getting a little bit of damage increase.
So, it falls to me.
And then Corentin could Wall of Ice or whatever you want, like Shield of Ice, Flanagan, whatever, on dead turns. Now, honestly, you're better off running, like this is Death Ball, usually you're better off running Serenoa instead of Frederica to put Shielding Stance on Flanagan. He also Hawk Dives things. And then instead of Narve, you would want Avlora just roaming around killing things. But this Narve could be used in this case. So, and it would be suboptimal, but it would still be good. It would still be very strong. But really the thing that makes it strong is these 3 units here. Corentin, Flanagan, and Medina. And Medina just wants to be spamming items. So, and then Flanagan can chip heal as needed. Or even just like heal things.
Whatever it takes.
And then she just constantly batteries everything, so that way Narve's TP issue is solved. And in this case, I think he can actually Mystic Beam this, yeah. So this is why Mystic Beam is good. It just gives him that little bit extra range. So if you want to be defensive with him, he can just poke things with Mystic Beam. And as long as he keeps catching Medina Battery, he can essentially infinitely, well not infinitely, but like use a spell each turn. And he can always use an item too, and it's still a useful turn. Because it'll still debuff, still be relevant, and it will still help your team. Alright, I think we pillars, or we can't pillars. Alright. One thing I could do is I could Sunfall, like, here. Because they're going to be next to some of us. So I could just do this. They're going to approach us, right?
Now then, to work.
Just Frosty Feathers. Just silence a guy. Just silence a guy. What are you going to do? That's what you got to do. You got to silence him. Yeah, I mean, Narve's he's a good unit, but like the thing is, there's so many insane units that he really just gets overshadowed, and I think that's like a problem with the game. But at least most things are viable, so I think that's actually fine. Most things are viable in this game. And then you can infinite double items by having Medina catch her own thing, so she always has 3 TP to double items and just puts everyone at 5. And then Narve could actually Whirlwind here, which is cool. Probably should have Whirlwind the other guy. I think I could hit him. Alright, he's silenced. So now he's in Sunfall range. So you can use Sunfall defensively. And it can be okay. Except that dude didn't move into it because he has some dumb ranged attack, so that's unfortunate.
Time for some research.
Alright, we would Glacial Moon this. Yeah, I like how it's like trying to target that, like it matters. We would target these. So we're just going to be Sunfalling one thing, so that's unfortunate. It's kind of funny, though. Sunfall definitely has a high skill ceiling, but honestly, I wish more abilities did. Because, like, that kind of gives you... I mean, that did a lot of damage, but it gives you more to play with. Like, because, like, when things are easy to do, it's usually not as interesting. And one way to add skill to a turn-based game would be to make these, like, you know, charge abilities have big impacts. Like, the big thing is payoff and reward, or like, how hard it is and what the payoff is. So, alright, we'll Ramparts again. We'll just finish out these, like, one more Narve turn just to kind of show what's going on. Alright, so he can Whirlwind. He can kill that. He can throw a stone. He can hit 2 of these horses, I think. No, oh wait, yes he can from here. He has to leave the Death Ball, though. This is kind of like the problem with Narve for being Death Ball. One of the upsides of Death Ball, like Corentin can Glacial Moon these, for sure. Frederica, she doesn't have as much range, but she's not even like part of Death Ball. But Piccoletta could be part of Death Ball because she has 6 range, so that actually would probably be a little bit better. But Narve being able to hit a bunch of things is still useful, but you can kind of see here, even when playing defensively, enemies are kind of all over the place. I think I can hit them here, right? No. You have to get the positioning just right to be able to maximize this, and it's definitely not as easy as just placing a big AoE somewhere, because like if I Glacial Moon, I can hit 2 things for sure really far away, versus this, there's more setup involved. Not to say this is bad, but it's just not as reliable, I guess. We'll go for the Paralyze, might as well. Corentin, so you can see here, the range is insane. It's not even a contest between the 2 units. You can kill a guy. Like, Glacial Moon is like the strongest spell in the game. Probably the best AoE ability in the game. In general, it's just so good. You double items. And then when he's on ice with Death Ball, he can Glacial Moon every turn. Because he generates 2 TP a turn from being on ice. Alright, we're starting to get some more ball on the enemies. But the only, like, honestly, he's better off with Benedict. With Narve, I would say. Like, you can see here, like, you don't really need that much AoE. You just need, like, a plus shape in most situations to kill. And that's usually better. Like, your average case for AoE is a plus shape for hitting multiple things. Looks like we can get some big wind off here. I'll have to move away from the damage reduction to hit more than that, though, which is unfortunate. And then my mobility is, like, greatly restricted. Now I can Scorch these, I can Scorch these. Let's check turn order. So I'm trying to demo this to show, like, the downsides of wind, because, like, it seems like it's pure upside, but the range is restrictive, right? Like, it's from Narve, so when on ice, he has 3 move, and this is a real thing you'll be encountering if you're running him. So we can do this. This is fine. Some good damage, some debuff. Big upside of Flanagan is he can just straight up do stuff like this. On his dead turns, he can just heal. Oh no, they fucked up our whole Death Ball. Oh no. Or did they? Let's see. We have a turn 4. We're gonna kill them. We're gonna, like, kill them really badly. To be honest, they're gonna die.
Here you go. Thank goodness. Here you go. Thank goodness.
Alright. Corentin can just stand back here. Yeah, look at this. This is why Glacial Moon is so much better than Wind. It's just so consistent. And it's not to say that Narve is bad or Wind is bad, but it's insane. Glacial Moon honestly needs nerfed. It should cost like 5 TP, and even then it would still be overpowered. But you can kind of see how absurd mages can be when they have damage mitigation. Alright, and then Narve over here. So, like, this is exactly the problem with Wind, where it's, like, the starting position from it. Like, I can only hit one thing. I have to move into a position, and these scattered enemies... Like, Glacial Moon, I could hit both of these no problem, but, like, with this Wind... Like, I could Mystic Beam, but then he's in danger. He would probably die if I did that, so we're going to have to move back here. Maybe go for this. Except I don't like that it hits Frederica, so that's unfortunate. Maybe just have him heal. Let's do that. We'll have him do his healing thing. Killing things is usually better than healing, because it just prevents future healing from needing to occur. Okay, so we're almost there. I just want to do, like... I'll just in tandem him, I guess. Let's do this. Whoops, that's fleet-footed. Tandem. Alright. And we'll do a cool combo. I'll show you a cool MLG combo here. There you go. Flanagan can also pop out to do damage. Alright, and then from this position, this is better. This is more of what you would want. Something like this, to get them to ball up on a front. But I would say that's better. You're better off using like Benedict and Eridor and having the ball up around Eridor, and then Narve kind of trails Eridor, and then just kind of spams Wind on them, and then your mages just go to town. I would say that's probably a better use case than him being in a Death Ball. I think it's useful to show the Death Ball. They kind of show like the downsides of Wind and how like inflexible it can be. Because when you need to just put something somewhere, having it tied to his position... Like, look, this is, like, just look at how crazy this is. This is ridiculous. This is so powerful. Just being able to drop an AoE at a location. Now, obviously, he can do that with Scorch and stuff, but if you're talking about his large AoE, it's, like, situationally good. I kind of want to go for a Sunfall, which seems like a bad idea, but let's do it. It'll kill 3 things, potentially, by fast acting.
I hope you're watching, Grandfather.
Now, I can Wind here. Killing these. I think the mage is going to move up. I'm pretty sure the mage is going to move up. I actually might do this. This is going to look weird, but I'm going to have him try to kill this mage, maybe. If he can, or at least maybe paralyze it. No, that's unfortunate. Alright, what are you going to do? Alright, he's going to smack. This should move up. Yeah, that's going to get Sunfalled now. Alright, and then Medina can fast acting. So Sunfall kills 2? Jesus Christ, dude, that hit 400 damage. What the fuck? That's crazy. But you can see how the other mages can outdamage him between Sunfall and Glacial Moon. Like, I'm still getting good at using Sunfall, but when I get really good at using Sunfall from playing this game longer, it's going to be really stupid. It's going to be so broken. Glacial Moon is just easy to use, but Sunfall, like, when it hits for like 300 to 400 a hit. It's ridiculous. It's so much damage. But yeah, that's it for Narve. I wanted to show him, like, next to the other mages, where he's strong, where he's weak. I think it's helpful to show an actual match, or, like, at least a mock-up that's, like, simulating an actual match. To show the TP thing, how he needs a battery, the upside and downside of Wind Magic, which is his main thing. And yeah, that's it for this one. Thanks for checking this out. Definitely like and subscribe, and peace.